Another day in America. Just another day in America.
Oh boy. Oh boy. We are happy to go into the spaceship. Sometimes you need the spaceship to soar high above these clouds of violence and anxiousness and uncertainty and see a wider, bigger picture. So I'm hoping we'll do that today. How are you, brother?
Good man. 2021 is off to start as we expected. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I know we thought maybe that 2020 would end and that was it. Just wrap it up, pack it up, put it on a shelf, move on with our lives. But
Yeah.
2021, I was at the office yesterday and I put on the live stream of the count. They were gonna the vice president, so all the senators got to say their we vote, our electoral votes go to here,
Mm.
our votes go to there, and then they would say, okay, that's it, it's done, and this is the president. That's kind of the seal the deal moment. And there was some noise, so all of a sudden they said, okay, we're going to recess. They stopped the broadcasting, and then they came back. I just had it open, I was doing whatever else, and then they came back on. And then after another few minutes, the guy goes something like, whoever was leading the procedure said, either hide under your chair or
Wow.
something's under your chair or something like that.
Hmm.
I'm like, what? Something's under, and you hear a bunch of noise in the back. It's the United States Capitol. So you don't, I mean, if there's some noise in the back, what could it be? I mean, somebody tripped, somebody dropped a glass of water. What noise could there be inside the United States Capitol? And then all of
Right.
a sudden, um, so basically what I do now to get a kind of feel for what's happening in the news, so to speak, is I like open up like a Fox News, a CNN News, a Twitter feed, and a Facebook thing, and a Parler thing, and I'll try and get like a what is it called, the circles, the Venn diagram, like all of the,
Oh, right. Like you need I can't remember how it's called, but you
but there's that overlapping space,
intersection, like
intersection,
the
yeah, an
intersection.
intersection
Yeah.
between all of those different things, and somehow try and piece together some semblance of what's actually happening. Because
Right.
to um I mean, it's clear that any news outlet now is completely skewed with whatever agenda it is. So just trying to understand. So it's undisputed that a bunch of people, Trump supporters, apparently, anyway,
E-
people carrying Trump flags,
uh-huh.
uh,
Even
went
even
through,
even their identity itself is not 100% clear, right? But
and nothing is clear. Listen,
yeah.
there's been we didn't get to talking about spirituality yet, or what's behind the curtain. What we see with our eyes is all we're talking about. First, this is allegedly what happened, but it is normal, with, for example, if you look up something called false flags. I mean, it's well known that many wars are started by this thing called the false flag. So who knows if that's, what happened or how, but um tens of thousands of people pushed towards the United States Capitol, and there was fence and then another line of fencing. They just knocked over the fences and then
Mm.
knocked over the next ones, and then went to the door and broke through the door. And there's a couple guys inside, couple security guards, versus hundreds or thousands of people coming in. Now, what is interesting, somewhat, it's not a judgment either way, but there what somebody did die, or a few people died, but it wasn't like
There wasn't a
looting, like
mass
there
a
wasn't like
mass shooting all of a
smashing and
sudden or
shooting and
mhm.
fighting. It was mostly just like breaking into the United States Capitol, which yeah, that's just super unusual. um and then today, I think that the that they certified that Biden got the more electoral votes. Although I didn't see like an official story yet on the news to say so. But anyway, I don't care so much about that part. What's interesting is is that that happened, that there's
Yeah.
such a
Well,
division.
well, first of all, I just want to say I see Lisa here in one of the chats, and Spencer also. Uh, people, it feels like people know what you're talking about when you say that there's crazy agendas everywhere, and even to just get the news, just to understand what's happening in the world in an objective way, you have to go through to to see several angles and preferably opposing angles in order to see the intersection and to actually see what's happening. So that is also just that by itself is pretty
So
insane.
our show is not about political commentary, and it's not about these things, but we are very much feet on the ground, boots on the ground type of people. So when we look at things, we look, for example, when your child looks at, making his bed, and you look at making his at what it would take to make the bed for you, it's like I could do that in like 30 seconds. It would look exactly how I'd want it to look. At throw the blanket over, put the pillows on, straighten it up, I'm out. For
Yeah.
him, it's like climbing Mount Everest,
Right. Oh,
right? So
so
it's the
true.
same
So
event,
true
right?
with my
So
son.
right. So
Yeah.
it's not so much about the commentary about it, but it is worthwhile to we want to look at it like a parent looks at it. It's truly like a 30-second job, not as the child looks at it. So most everybody looks at what they see in front of their eyes like a child, right? They
Mhm.
don't understand things in the scope of history. They don't understand things in the scope of time. They don't understand things through the scope of other people, right? The kid's like,
Right.
why would I make my bed? I'm just going to mess it up in a few hours, right? So
Mhm.
they don't see a bigger picture of why you would even want to do that. Um, and they've great reason. Yeah, it's true. They're just going to mess it up and no one's coming over today. So why do you have to make the bed? But it's more of a way of you're raising a human being, and you want to have certain kind of order to life. So when we look at things like this, and we're not talking about politics, but when we look at things, we have to understand that everything is way, way, way beyond what appears at surface level.
Yeah.
So um, I mean, this concept of false flags, for example, uh, it's it's well documented. You can Google it later. But if I need to engage in a certain conflict in a certain country for whatever reason, whatever justified reason, maybe 100 years ago, I need to engage in a conflict, or 50 years ago in a certain country for a certain reason, but I can't get my country behind me. I'm the leader of the country and I can't get my country behind me. But
Mhm.
if somebody shot a rocket at one of our Navy boats,
Yeah.
well, then the country would get behind me to go attack them. So if
Yeah.
somehow, now, and how do I know over here that it was actually the Russians that shot at the boat, or
Yeah.
anyone else who shot at the boat? How would we know from here? Because we don't control the news. We just believe whatever the news tells us, because I don't have any eyes on the ground in the Black Sea or wherever it was, right? So, um,
Yeah, Noah Moore here on the chat is just writing perception beat reality and media know it. Yeah, it's true. That's
yeah,
very
wow.
true.
Say that again.
He says perception beats reality and media knows it. And
Right.
that's yeah, yeah, and there are it's we had Norma, who was a former CNN correspondent many years ago, but she's looking at the media today, and she told us, don't look at anything without suspicion. Very simple, simple as that.
Mm-hmm. So
But yeah, go ahead.
okay, so I wouldn't categorize myself as a um, regular American citizen, because although I was born here, raised here, lived my whole life here, but I don't side so much with the Democrats or the Republicans. I see that unity is the solution to all of this mess. And so my feelings, and also I'm looking at something that's a very, kind of a big um picture. So when I'm looking at what's going on here, Listen, it's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking to imagine that if something like that could happen, what else could happen? I mean, imagine if while this happened, meanwhile, in Oregon, for example, the Antifa guys squared off against the Proud Boys, meaning
Mm-hmm.
the
It's like
street
extreme left, extreme right, like clashing. Yeah.
clashing in the streets and fighting in the streets. Now, so far, it's just been with fists. But if one of these guys decided to take out a machete or decided to take out a gun,
Yeah.
or if yesterday people just started taking out guns, right? Like what force prevents everyone from taking guns out? I mean, that could you
Mm-hmm.
imagine what happens if all of a sudden this is guns everywhere? If all of a sudden all the there's more guns in America than there are people,
Yeah.
right?
Four
This is
people
like we're
four people died in the last 24 hours in this commotion
I'm
without
surprised
guns,
that's it.
without,
We're
uh
sitting on a powder charge. We're sitting on on like a pile of highly explosive bombs right now and
mhm.
trying to like calm this thing down because the other way could be really bad. This is, and what happens in the United States will happen in the rest of the world. Russia's going to have problems. Israel, of course, has problems.
Yeah.
Lots of countries now are going to see this kind of split get more and more extreme. And we could be like up against even like a world war. I mean, it's and only until it's like, do you punish your kid if he's doing what he's supposed to do?
Hmm.
You don't want to punish him at all. Not saying punish, but um
Yeah, we're at a point today where even if your side won, can you really be happy today? Can you really be like calm and like peaceful and tranquil? We have,
bro,
okay,
I tell you
everything
what,
is
I
just,
would tell you there are people there's people now who literally feel, and I don't know how simplistic this is, literally feel like, okay, that's it. We killed the bad guy, like a Hollywood movie. Like, bad guy's gone, here we go, smooth sailing. Yes. So the answer to your question is,
yeah.
yeah, I think there are people who actually
Hmm.
think that, okay, we eradicated evil. Now we can get back to sanity.
But when was there sanity? Was there sanity 4 years ago? Was there sanity before
You
that?
trying to
So
convince me? I,
no,
I, I agree with you.
I'm trying to understand the profile of the person that you're describing to me. Like I do get that there are people who were on one side of the equation and people on the other side, and the people whose side won, now they're kind of like they kind of won the war kind of thing. But I'm saying, can you really be happy? Even the people from the side who won, so to speak, can they really be just calm about where the future is going? You're saying yes. You think
I
people are,
Okay, so
with
let me
all this
explain.
turmoil? Yeah.
I have a cousin whose mom, so her kids and her kids and me are the same generation. So like my mom
Okay.
and her are the same generation. So it's my kind of my aunt, my cousin. Her parents were her dad survived the Holocaust, had the tattoos and everything. He was in the
Right.
camps and all that stuff. Okay, she's really sensitive about like Nazi stuff. Okay.
Hmm.
So what she sees when she looks at the mainstream media is a guy that has the guy who was in the Capitol yesterday with a sweatshirt that says Camp Auschwitz. I don't know if you saw that picture, Chris, if you could
Hmm.
find that picture, right? So you had some people who maybe were really kind of freedom fighters. You also had some people who were like pretty blatant racists. Okay, so a guy breaks into the Capitol. One of the guys who was in the Capitol yesterday had a sweatshirt on that said Camp Auschwitz on his shirt.
Hmm.
Okay, on a sweatshirt. Uh, to her and the media that she watches, Trump incites racism. Trump incites anti-Semitism, and to her, when they get rid of him, when they get rid of Trump, okay, there it is, Camp Auschwitz. You see on the left, the guy wearing the
Man
Camp Auschwitz
wearing
shirt.
man wearing pro Holocaust sweatshirt and amid Capitol rioters. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Hmm.
Okay. So to you can imagine her parents survived the Holocaust. She grew up with that in the home, like
Right.
as a daily reality, looking at the PTSD on her dad and how that affected their life. Okay. So if her perception is that Trump is pro uh,
Right.
anti-Semite, pro whatever, then yeah, she feels that defeating Trump is defeating evil. And now we got our country back. That's
I
real. That's really
Okay.
what people think. It's
Okay.
not like,
Tell
oh, well, now he's out and or did we really win? No, they really think, yeah, that's it.
I'll tell you what I think. Maybe I am spiritually optimistic, too overly spiritually optimistic. But I think that there's a group of people on both sides that are very, very loud, um, and they are, not seeing anything besides waging war with the other side. And then you have more people that are not as active, but they're also very, very belligerent, let's say, in their attitude towards the other side. But I think that in the middle you have a lot of people that are still, they still subscribe to one side or the other, but they're looking at everything that's happening and they're thinking. I think that what's happening what's happening today is that we're going through a very deep self-social scrutiny. You know what I mean? The events that are happening, it's not like, and especially with this whole media frenzy, this craziness that you don't really know what you're being told is real, and what kind of incentive, what kind of vested interests, what kind of agendas are actually driving the stories that you're reading about and seeing and everything. I do think that a big amount of people is are watching their TVs, are turning on their, scrolling their feeds, and they're thinking. They don't know exactly what to do about it, but I think that there is a lot of scrutiny that is happening. Maybe it's not as conscious. Maybe it's not as conscious, but I think that something is going on. I don't think that the majority of people are, that's it. They're either left and or they're right, and they think they lost or they think they won, and now they have to either keep fighting, or they now it's everything's gonna be okay because their guy won. I don't
So
think that
so
that represents the majority of people. That's my thinking. I don't think it represents the majority of people. I think that,
okay, so
yeah. Go ahead.
okay, well, um I would posit like this, that a person has desires regardless of whether he lives on a desert island or a mountaintop. He's the only guy who live alive on earth, okay? And he has certain desires: food, shelter, regular desires. All the other desires that a person has, he acquires from the environment. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to kind of challenge what you're saying, because the
Yeah,
environment, the media is so strong that it forms a person.
I agree. I agree with
This
that.
is exactly the same principle that we use in
Yes.
spirituality. You have a person who has certain desires that he's going to have no matter what. He could be a baseball player, he could be a fireman, he could be a butcher, he could be a mobster. He's got certain desires that he's just has. You could put him on a desert island, and those are his desires. But you put him in a certain society, and he starts to absorb other desires from the society. And that's
Right.
the principle we use in spiritual advancement also, right? We surround ourselves with this, so we start thinking about it and looking, because how it works in psychology is that the thing that I value is the thing that I start to focus on, and then that's what I start perceiving. So for example, like, I'm sure you've heard this, there's something called the RAS, something articulation system or something in the brain. It's like if you're about to have, if your wife is pregnant with twins, all of a sudden, like on the radio, you hear twins. You never heard it before. You never heard
Yeah,
it before.
yeah,
All
yeah.
of a sudden, you're
Sure,
walking down the street and you
sure.
see like strollers for twins. All of
Yeah,
a sudden, you start seeing stuff for twins everywhere,
yeah,
right? It's the same way. It's the same reality, but you didn't see those things before.
yeah.
So by constantly being fed these things through the society we're in, a person very much, his focus, his perception of reality even changes. So I think that what you're saying is like the raw material, that most people are kind of in the middle and they really want just to have a good life and their family to be healthy and to be okay and just
No,
to be
no,
able
no, no,
to.
no. That's not exactly what I'm saying. I'll let me continue what you're
Okay,
just saying.
continue.
You're saying that we as human beings, we have like our bodily desires, or like, stuff that is embedded in our genes, and put you on a desert island, you'll still want like food and sex and
Stuff
shelter,
you inherited
and
from your great
yeah, and
grandparent
yes,
orangutan
things like that.
grandma.
And then there is the huge component of social influence, and that has to do with the media, and that has to do with the friends you surround yourself with, and
Friends,
the
yeah.
headlines you're reading, and the algorithms that are the AI that is constantly recommending to you stuff on your phone, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that as part of this social influence, environmental influence that we are surrounded by and is influencing us, there is a general vortex sort of influence that we are all surrounded by.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, this isn't just one incident of very strange and alarming violence that we saw in the last 24 hours. We just came from a year of a global pandemic that has completely entered the environmental field of influence that we are all surrounded by. We have went through a year of huge rise in social and political polarization that have swept our minds, and we are swimming in this vortex. What the stuff that's happening to us today with the media and with politics and with the pandemic and with the economic situation, all of that is putting us is exerting uncertainty, exuding, I would say. Like it's like think of like being in a vortex. Doesn't matter what happens, you're confused. You see stuff, but you keep swirling and swirling around. That's how I feel that all of humanity, like that's how I feel most people feel today. That's kind of my take on it. So it's not that we're not influenced by all those media advertisements, social media, our feeds, and our, and what the leaders say and the headlines and all that. Yeah, sure, we're definitely influenced by that, but we have entered a vortex. We've entered
Mm-hmm.
this sort of swirl, and we
But you were
keep
telling me about
spinning and
this group of people
spinning.
that's you're telling me about this group of people that's not left and not
So
right.
I think that the more I think that if you're not uh, anywhere on the extremes, you feel the vortex more than those on the extremes. That's what I think. I think that if you're not, it's hard. The less you are, an avid extreme, the less fanatic you are. I'll just say it bluntly. The less fanatic you are, the more you have room for thinking, the more you have capacity in your mind and in your heart to contemplate what is going on to you, to others, to everything. And the forces that are operating on humanity right now through the pandemic, through the growing social division, through the growing economic inequality, through the changes, the weird changes that are happening as a result of the pandemic, changes in lifestyle, thoughts about the future are suddenly surfacing into our minds. Are we going to go back to normal? What is normal? What was normal? It was a year ago already. We've entered this, again, vortex. I don't know how to call that. And I think that that if you're not on the extremes, that vortex is influencing you, and so all of the media and all of the social influence that is shaping your desires, I agree with that. It is shaping our desires, but we are also influenced by this environmental force of nature, if you want to call it that way, that is spinning our minds and hearts and making us contemplate what's
I
happening
know,
now.
I know.
I want to just to add a reservation to that before you completely rule me out here. The reservation is this: I'm looking at it, from our perspective, like from a perspective of a Kabbalah student, from a perspective of someone who's constantly thinking about human evolution and so on. Definitely, I'm talking about this like at a high level, but I think that it appears in people. I think that people are asking themselves questions today, and maybe they don't know how to put the finger on it, but that's sort of the process that's happening. You see what I'm trying to say? I'm not saying it's conscious. I'm not saying that most of the people are thinking about, that we have to reshape human society, but they're starting to think little questions, little by little. What is actually going on here? Are we, can we actually make things better? Are we going to go back to the previous economy? Are the vaccines are actually going to work? Yes or no? People are little by little, through the various aspects of this global multifaceted crisis and transformation that humanity is going through, people are affected by it in different ways, and they ask some more or less conscious questions. Go ahead. Yeah.
Check out this interesting phenomenon. Okay, so among Trump supporters, you have Jews who, because Trump is like, I guess, into Israel or whatever. Okay, so you have Jews. You also have white supremacists. Okay, like the pro-Nazi
Right.
guys, they're also Trump supporters. They're definitely not Biden supporters. Okay, you also have, if you watch the rally on the 5th in the evening, there was a bunch of black guys rapping,
Okay.
and you have white supremacists.
Yeah.
Okay, you have all of these different groups that would be seemingly opposed to each other, but they all are like under the same banner. In a sense, it's like if you're not really holding on to something that you are fighting for, then you're super confused. Like
Yeah.
the kind of remedy for being confused is to just grab some banner and charge forward. So there may be that also, that it helps the ego, which is kind of, the ego right now is like, well, for example, imagine if you were Joe. I know these people are not like this, they're a different breed, but if you were Joe Biden right now, if I was,
Mm.
I'd be like, oh God, what did I get myself into? I just want to go home. No, he inherited the coronavirus. He inherited an economy in free fall. He inherited a world in chaos, and now he's got to deal with that. That's not fun. Um,
Yeah. The You mentioned the ego, and I think that's a key piece here, to looking at the whole situation. Okay, so maybe let's put aside how conscious people are about what's actually happening. Um, you have two parts of society fighting against each other, right? Now, the all of that motivation to fight. Just think about what would happen if we started, instead of just every side looking at the other and trying to fight the other, just actually trying to fight the ego that separates us, just trying to
it's
fight
not
the
so before
separation.
you can do that,
Yeah.
you have to identify it. We're still really far from identifying it, but I
Yeah,
think
I agree.
nature's
I agree with that.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Because and also it's super vague when you say we have to fight the
Yo,
evil.
yo,
Like I don't even know what you mean.
sure,
So
sure, sure.
so kind of my eyes glaze over when you say something like that. But what I think will happen is that if the Democrats now, Joe Biden, for example, is the president, we'll see clearly they're not going to be able to do anything. We're done. It's like done. The old models are done, right? Trump and da da da. Okay, fine. And now give the Democrats a chance, and we'll see. It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get now worse. Doesn't mean you personally, our friends, Asaf, me, that everything needs to no, but outside it's going to feel like it's getting worse because we have to come to the correct diagnosis of where we're going as a species, of what's happening. What does it mean that it's getting worse? It's really not worse. This is actually something phenomenal that's happening, everyone. This is actually something really good that's happening. We need to stop looking at it like we're the young boy who's like thinks of making his bed as this tragic thing that you're ruining my life and why do I need to do it, and it's just going to get, and you just need to think about it like the parent. It's going to take 30 seconds and everything's going to be cool. When you get into bed later, you're going to be happy, and everything's going to feel like it makes sense. We are not able to really come to that until we go through this long arduous process. That's what we're doing here on the show, is trying to speed that up through the understanding and through some kind of taste of that next state. But the next administration will come in the United States and will be opposite from the previous one, and they won't be able to solve anything. And then we'll feel like that we keep talking about, like that baby who's left home alone. He's like,
Yeah.
well, where's I can't reach the food. I don't know what to do. Who's protecting me? And then we can begin to build a new, caring, good, connected world. And as long as we think that, oh, my side's gonna win and we're gonna get you and we're gonna defeat it, as long as the solution comes from eradicating someone else, or then nature's still got to work on us hard. She's still
Okay.
going to push us hard.
Let's talk about nature. Let's try to expand our view here, to really take like a more bird's eye view on what's going on, right? So you have a situation where the social division leads to violence, and who knows what's going to happen if this trend continues. That is something that one way or another we're going to have to wake up to. We're going to have to recognize that we can't divorce from each other. We can't just, kill the other side, or push it away. You can't have a situation where half of the public is very, very oppressed or dissatisfied, and you're going to have to create a situation where people feel, that they can contribute to and be supported by their society. Now, how much violence do you need for that to happen? This is my whole like debate with myself is do you need a lot of violence, like much worse than yesterday, or to the last 24 hours, to happen, or can you sort of speed up the awakening process through education, through um,
Make it sound fun.
make it sound fun. I don't know, man. We're talking about saving our lives, to be honest. I don't know about fun. Saving our lives is fun. We're talking about preventing violence. We're talking about preventing civil war. We're talking about preventing horrible things from happening, chaos from happening, to be
Okay, so
honest.
nature doesn't care what anybody thinks. Nature doesn't care if you think your political party is smarter than the other
Right.
political party,
Right.
uh, and nobody wants to hear that nature has a plan. So therefore, we're going to continue on the path of suffering.
Maybe. Maybe.
Alternatively, Alternatively, the world is now calming down from all of the BS from the previous century. We had all of this. So you have necessity, like, and you can maybe fluff out necessity a little more, go on a snowboarding vacation or take
Mm.
your kids to the beach somewhere. And so necessity doesn't mean that I'm eating, salt and, water and bread and sleeping on the floor. Necessity in the normal world. You can have a refrigerator but just a normal life. But on top of that, so much crap, so much crap that the 20th century put on top, so many industries of crap, so much waste, so much exploitation. And now the world is calming down from all of that. So let's look at it like the parent, not the
Okay.
child who has to make his bed.
Okay. So the child that is the humanity of today needs a vision of what it means to be an adult. Here's the thing. Again, we need to see the global picture of what is happening. It's not just the social division, the political division, and that violent incident. We are going into a vortex again, or a labor pains, if you want to put it that way. Nature is putting humanity into a process of birth. And you have to be pressured in that process. Because you have to go through a very tight birth canal. And so it's only natural that we're beginning to feel pressed. The thing
Mm-hmm.
is that it's only natural that we're beginning to feel pressed and that we don't recognize where we're going. If you put yourself in the body of the baby that has just kind of developed its organs, it's still very fragile, it's very small, its brain is not fully is not fully developed, and its senses are not really functioning. And now in that state, and it needs to be that state, in that state it has to go into a completely new world. A completely new world. This is sort of what we're going into. We're just getting into, let's say, from 2020, with this global pandemic. We're going into a point where we're gonna see that our old institutions are not working. This whole
Mm-hmm.
idea of having this constant political struggle between left and right, and now you win, now I win, now I'll rule you, and now you will rule me, you will oppress me, and now I'll oppress you. This whole thing, we're gonna see that it's no longer working, and the only thing that can come from an increase of that, and a continuation of that, is violence. So we're reaching a roadblock, a gridlock, a dead end. We cannot solve society to solve this social conundrum, to live with each other in peace with the current kind of
But watch how clever.
establishments that we
Watch how
have.
nature work. But watch how nature works on it, though, because um, my dad's really into boating. He's got this thing, like he worked really hard his whole life, and now he
Mm,
got into this thing of boats. He wants to have a boat, right? But
okay.
my kids want to order chicken or pizza and like play video games.
Right.
Like it's just the two generations are so different. The younger generation, they don't care. All those things are losing their flavor. Like, I want to take over the world. I want to, go. I want to. All of those big kind of visions that worked for the last ever are kind of losing their flavor. What happens if kids start to feel like that they don't have any flavor for these things that are being advertised to
that
them all the time?
that's another. This is why it's difficult to discuss this, from because you have to really see the picture, you have to take everything into account. What the new generation is already born into is a they're born into a reality which is very different from your dad's reality when he was a young kid,
He grew up in a one bedroom apartment in the
hmm
Bronx with like a very working class father. who like built a business,
Mm-hmm.
and they made it happen. And he married my mom, whose dad was whose grandpa was a taxi driver. I mean, they were immigrants who like built something, but now they worked hard. They worked for generations. And he wants a boat and a second house, and
And that whole concept of work hard, have success, enjoy your life is no longer working for these new for the new generation. First of all, because the world stops working this way, the economy stops working this way. The world in the last 100 years has changed dramatically. This is all, it's all part of the great transition. This is you cannot, we're in a process that is inevitable. We cannot escape it. And the big part that we're the stage of it that we're entering now, if you ask me, is confusion and uncertainty, and becoming helpless of trying to fix the current situation. I think that has to dawn on us in some way,
and then
in some,
and
and
then
then we have to,
despair.
and then we have to recognize that we can build a whole new thing. We can build an amazing world if we rebuild ourselves as well. If we need to be reborn in a way, again, back to the the labor pains metaphor. So you don't see where you're going, you do not know where you're going. You're going into the world, you're going to have a whole new life, but you don't know it as a baby. All that you know is that the walls are closing in on you. And the place that you grew up in for 9 months, the place that you were used to, the place that fed you and that you were nourished by, now becomes narrow. It's strangling you. It's becoming very, very stressful. And and ahead of you, uncertainty, vagueness. This is required for a new level of life to emerge. That's what we're dealing with here. What the US, what's happening right now in the US is a mini model and a prediction of what may happen and will happen if everything goes exactly the way it is without any positive intervention. We can talk about that too. But what we're seeing in the US is a mini model of the future of all of humanity, all of the Western world, at least. This is look at my country. We are now going into the fourth election in 2 years. Every 6 months there's an election in this country. It's
Presidential
insane.
election.
It's like the prime minister is really
Prime
like the
minister.
more like the president is more
Yeah.
like a symbol.
Ceremonial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ceremonial. The prime minister is like the equivalent of the president in the US. So the this is also, it's what are we seeing here? We're seeing that the method no longer works. Now we threw in ego a few minutes ago, and we didn't define it, we didn't say anything about it. The ego is this growth of human consciousness that doesn't let us just live calmly and quietly with each other like ancient peoples could. We are, the human being today needs something else. We need a discovery of a new level of life. We need to be reborn. We need to go through a spiritual birth, if you want to, bring in spirituality into it. The That's the kind of process that we're going through. And so this is why I think that the media thing also that we brought up is really interesting. It's not, there's something really interesting about it. Look at and again, I'm not pro this or pro that, but look at what's happening here. You have Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Spotify. I think all of them. I saw headlines today are they're banning or whether they're doing um,
Censoring.
censoring, banning, or there's another word for it. The stopping, in short, they're stopping Trump's account. Now, I'm not. Of course, what they're saying is that from their perspective, that he incited the violence, and so they have, that's their their reasoning for doing that. But I'm not even getting into that, and I don't care whether you're in favor of what they're doing or not. I'm just saying, look at what's happening. Again, bird's eye view. What's going on here? All of a sudden, you have these forces of these companies, so these social media giants that are suddenly overtly, publicly, explicitly are saying we have a public role in determining who gets to say their piece or not, and we are, putting the block on this one. This is also completely unprecedented. This is the fact that they are suddenly taking on this role is also something you wouldn't expect, a couple years ago, or even, let's say a decade ago. Who would have thought such a thing is even
It's a
possible?
big
But
problem if the media and the politicians are completely in bed together. It's a big problem because the whole system works by everyone keeping each other accountable.
that essentially that's that leads to authoritarianism, of course. But I'm saying the fact is that the infrastructure of the world is changing, and the establishments that we are familiar with to run and regulate social life are changing. This is all I'm trying to say. The methods that we have been using to manage society are crumbling because
Hmm.
we're entering a new world. We need to give birth to a new social formation which we don't yet know.
This is why
And
despair
yeah.
is this is why despair is good. Not despair like I like I had in 2015 or in 2008 or in 2002, where you're on the floor crying. Not that kind of despair. The kind of despair. I mean, maybe the same inner cry, but we're not we're of helplessness, but we're not alone. We're already together. We already have a method. We already know where we're going, but we have to feel that all of the things that we've used so far to get here are not the tools that are going to work to
Yes,
go forward.
exactly. This is
We
why,
have to be despaired of all these tools.
yes. And it's not a bad thing, because you wanted me to portray something fun. But here's the thing, that we need to grow and mature a little bit in our observation on life. This is nature, is is the general system that's common to all of us. It's funny when you meet a person that you don't have a lot in common with, like out of the elevator or out of a building or something. The first thing you talk about is how's the weather, right? It's the most common thing.
Cold
Well,
out there today, huh?
yeah, so it's yeah, what do you say about these clouds? It's like suddenly that becomes, but you know what? It's two human beings recognizing that there's one thing that doesn't matter who you are and who am I. You're left and I'm right, and I'm black and you're white, and you're this and I'm that, and whatever it is. Right now, we do recognize that the weather is something common to all of us. That's what nature's plan
You just
is.
legitimize
To
small talk to me. I usually hate it when people start with that with me.
no, but
He's
where
saying, look, this person's looking for common ground.
but that's I'm saying. Where does it come from, the talk about the weather? It's because it's an instinct. As we instinctively recognize that there is a common thing that we share, and that thing has to do with nature. It has to do with a greater governing set of laws and process that we all share as human beings. Doesn't matter who we are, right or left, black or white, have or have nots, whatever it is. We're all bound by laws of nature. That is the kind of awakening that we will gradually need to go through as 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 we're going through the crumbling of the old structures. And the old structures, meaning the politics we have today, the media that we had until today, the education system that was created 200 years ago, the all of that is going to have to go through a massive upgrade, and it's going to be based on a new shared understanding of what it means to live together as human beings. That shared understanding will be rooted in a deeper, better, broader understanding of human nature, of human evolution, and where nature is pushing us. We're going to have to recognize that we're all human beings. We all have a growing ego, something that animals don't have. We all have a very social nature that media can manipulate and advertising can manipulate and political groups can manipulate. There's this famous experiment where you take kids, you put them, you say this group is blue, this group is red, and they start fighting each other just because they were told that you have this color, I have this color. This whole group identity thing is really, it has a huge impact on our brain and on our survival instincts and all that. So we're gonna have to understand who we are as human beings, and most importantly, we're gonna have to understand that nature is pushing us towards greater interdependence.
Yeah,
Look at
we're
the
not
hundred.
going back.
We're not going back. We are not going back. That's the whole point. It's inevitable. So you cannot continue. This trend of interdependence is not going away. It's only increasing. It's the stranglehold of this sort of birth canal that we're going through. And on the other hand, we're trying to still work with the old systems and the old politics and the old ideas about left versus right and you versus me and all that, when we should really start becoming, in our minds and in our hearts, we need to start becoming more integrated with each other, just like the rest of nature. And that's what nature is gradually pushing us to. But there's the problem here, because evolution has to leave this space for conscious development.
So
We have to become conscious of it. Yeah,
if there
go.
was a person who was, if Walt Disney came back, right? They froze him. You know about that? Walt Disney.
What? Say it again. Say it again.
Well, Walt Disney, Disney World,
Yeah. What
the
about
guy.
him?
Okay,
They
they
froze him.
froze him. They
What?
froze him
Like, really?
before
I
he
know. I
died
didn't
or
know. I
something
didn't
like
know
that.
that. No.
He paid to be frozen. Certain people do this so that they can be woken up once they come up with the technology to make you live forever or live for like a long
Right.
time. Then they unfreeze you and you get to like live for whatever.
All
So,
right.
I mean, I heard it as a kid. I imagine it's real. And I didn't check. But if they brought him back today, right? And they walked him around the park and he look
Hmm.
at Disney World and look at what you got, and he would, oh my God, he's got all these ideas, right? He's been frozen. He comes out and he sees how great it is, but he's thinking he doesn't know about all the tools we have today. He doesn't know about the internet. He doesn't
Right.
know about all of the tools that we have.
Yeah.
What's happening here is we're now talking, and when you start to explain to him, it's going to take him a few weeks or months to grasp it.
Sure.
What do you mean I can
Sure.
talk? Even if you show him the phone, like to comprehend
you
how
you'd
and
need
what and
like a basic training on what is the 21st century. Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a baby inside the womb, right? First of all, the little seed is completely taken care of. It's completely nourished. It's in the most comfortable place ever. It gets only the amount that it needs. Its waste gets cleaned. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Everything is always perfect. And he's just in there. And then all of a sudden, somehow he gets enough power to push himself out. And he comes out, and then all of a sudden, these people are right there. They take care of him. They clean him. They feed him. They
Mm-hmm.
take care of him. They kiss him, sing with him, everything. And then at a certain age, good luck, kid. And the world just beats the hell out of him for the rest of his life. He's got to find work. He's got to pay his mortgage. He's
Right.
got to deal with his health. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Right? It's like two opposite things. So, but if you understand how the system works, right? If Walt Disney woke up and he didn't know what was going on, it's like very confusing. And how can you, and not only just confusing, he doesn't know the tools, so he wouldn't really be able to build things the way that you can. And everything is so antiquated. So here we come now talking about future states.
Yeah, this is
We're,
this is why it's difficult. Yeah, sure.
we're talking about the future already while we're
Yeah.
still in the old state. And that's what we need to see here, everybody. This is what we're talking about. On the one hand, we're looking at what's in front of us, very clearly. But on the other hand, we want to see it all with brand new eyes. That's what enables us to go through things quickly. That means we anyway have to go through all of the steps emotionally because that's what builds us. Without a hunger, right? You wouldn't enjoy the food. This is what makes us get off the couch, get out of bed in the morning. But we have to start to see what is the vision that we're aiming towards. What is
And I think that the people who are hearing this message, and they probably the people who are, you know such people, they probably feel it, to an extent without us even saying. Maybe we're just putting words to feelings that are already there. I think that group of people, or layer of people, it's not even a group, it's like a they can be, from anywhere and everywhere, but the people who are feeling that we are going through this great transition, that there is a bigger transformation that human society is going through, that we have to rise above, in our perception, in our consciousness, to a new level of life. The people who feel that, I think they have the most responsibility right now. It's not in trying to start a political movement, or trying to you know change something in the current systems. It's in working on ourselves, because human consciousness, spreads like a ripple effect. It's we're all interconnected. That's why we've become so interconnected and interdependent in the last century. It's only an external appearance, manifestation of a deeper process that is happening in mankind. We are becoming one super organism. And so spreading that consciousness is up to those who are already conscious. That's why it is so important that those who feel this are are working on themselves to envision this future, to want to desire this future, to think about it, to aspire to it, and as much as possible kind of radiate that outwardly. We're going into, that's a whole other discussion. Do our actions affect the world, or our thoughts and intentions? That's a whole other discussion that we should get into some other time. But to conclude, I would say we all need to be the midwife. The midwife is how you call it. Is there a better word for it? The one who helps the baby come out into the world. You know, uh, that that
okay? Can you hear me?
yeah. No, you were
Oh, okay. My computer froze for
your
a second.
audio. No, no, no. You're
Yeah,
good. You're good. The
yeah,
midwife, is that a good term for
yeah. You
it?
would call these the birth pangs of a new humanity, and
Yeah.
we need to. Everybody who's here, you are. We now christen you the midwife. You are the.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's
you've
on you.
yeah. Welcome.
We need we need we need to
Your new
birth. We
job.
need to birth this baby.
Welcome to your new job. Yeah,
Yeah.
the job starts today. Oh boy. We have to wrap this up. Do you have a song for us, Seth? Something that fits the occasion?
I
While
only
you
have
think
something
about
new.
it, while you
Yeah.
think about it, I'll mention that we will be here again, the Great Transition, on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And what were you saying?
Um, I don't remember exactly, but there we didn't see a lot of questions today, but it's really helpful if I mean I saw like some comments by Soke and by I don't remember everyone right now who I saw the messages, but
And
we're
we also have people from everywhere today, but we unfortunately we didn't have Denise, who's
Denise had her
usually.
baby. Speaking of giving birth to a baby,
Yes,
Denise just had her
yes,
baby.
yes. So
Oh, thank you, Chris. Chris
Chris
said,
did. Chris did a quick list here for us. Yeah,
okay,
he says we have.
Spain.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We have friends with us here from Spain and North Carolina and Egypt and Utah and Quebec and the Netherlands and Minnesota and Ohio and Puerto Rico and Bangalore, India. And I saw Florida as well. And I saw Jacksonville as well, and Norway and Israel. And I'm sure UK. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of more places, but yeah, and even though not many questions, but a bunch of very insightful comments as well in the chats. I was kind of scrolling a little bit as we were talking. So yeah, guys, great transition is happening. Do not be alarmed. Do not be overwhelmed. We know where things are going. Nature is building a higher level of evolution from mankind, and guess what? We're privileged to feel some of that and to be partners with nature. So hopefully we'll be doing that personally until we meet again on Sunday.
And until we get kicked off of Twitter, tell us what tell us what's moving you. What are the questions that are coming up during the week? Like we want it'd be good to hear from you. Like what's not just on Thursdays and Sundays, but if something is coming up, if there's some story in the news or there's some insight, like let's share it and keep the conversation going. So what's our Twitter thing? TGT
Yes. The handle is TGT_pod. TGT_pod. That's Twitter. You can send us some ideas, topics, questions,
questions, updates, topics you'd
anything.
like to hear about, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And let's keep it going. It's everything is in our hands. I will see you on Sunday, 2 p.m. Wow, this week flew by.
What am I? Learn what they know. Just a child, I learned by watching you. I need you to show me something good. Show me how. Can't do it without you. We're not waiting for something to happen. We determine what will happen. We're not waiting for something to happen. We determine what will happen. To belong, to come here as a friend. The light is strong to touch our soul at last. I need you to show me something good. Show me how. Can't do it without you. We're not waiting for something to happen. We determine